Solo Leveling is absolutely fire. It has one of the most gorgeous fight scenes I've seen in recent memory, and it is overflowing me with hype after hype. The way Studio A1 is adapting this anime is elevating it to be one of the greats, and I have a lot to say about it. But before you go any further into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get back into the video. In the video I made last year for Solo Leveling, I was critical of the first season of Solo Leveling because I found the animation good, though it may have been paling in comparison to the golden standards set by anime such as Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, and Frieren. But it seems like the team behind Solo Leveling Season 2 has gotten my memo and are creating one of the most gorgeous fight animations I've seen in a long while. This is what a story like Solo Leveling needs. The fights are very important, and it is very necessary to get them right with great animation. Look what's happening to Sakamoto Days. For those of you who don't know, Sakamoto Days is an anime adaptation of a really good action heavy manga of the same name that is releasing in winter 2025, and although it has decent animation, it is not enough to do the source material justice because the fights are the highlights of the story. So it is very important they get it right, and how you get it right is through great animation, much like Solo Leveling. And I'm very happy that Studio A1 Pictures are doing the story of Solo Leveling justice by going crazy on the animation, because honestly I've been kind of disappointed by the other manhwa adaptations such as Tower of God, God of High School, and worst of them all, Nobliss. So I'm very happy that Solo Leveling is different. Last year on my Solo Leveling video, I said that if they fix up some of the problems Season 1 had, such as the animation, Solo Leveling truly had the potential to be great. And look at what's happening. Solo Leveling is breaking all sorts of records on Crunchyroll, the first episode of Season 2 being the highest rated debut in anime history, and also every episode reaching 100k likes. Season 2 episode 6 being the fastest episode to break 100k likes, and many more that I'm not mentioning. Solo Leveling is just unstoppable at this moment. It got even anime piracy sites like Hi Anime crashing out. The popularity and greatness of Solo Leveling is reaching the heights I knew it could reach, because for those of you who've read the manhwa, I don't need to explain how good it is. So seeing Solo Leveling reaching this god status in the anime sphere is such a delight, because I get to re-experience the story again, and since it has been a very long time since I read the web novel, I have forgotten some of the things that happened, so this for me is like a whole new experience. Now I have to talk about the Jinwoo versus Kargalan fight. Kargalan, who later becomes one of Jinwoo's soldiers' tusk. Even though there was noticeable change in the quality of Season 2 right from the first episode, Episode 6 just took it to another level and blew it out of the water. Jinwoo fighting with the High Orcs, him summoning his shadow soldiers in front of Kargalan and his armies, and the bewilderment of the A-rank hunters who are surprised by their bag carrier being this incredible hunter who reminds them of their vice captain, who is Chai Hai-in. It was all so good, and in this arc I was afraid it was going to feel repetitive, because for me it was similar to when the incident with the raid gate happened and Jinwoo had to fight the giant polar bears, and the main leader of that group was a douche. Only cared about surviving and didn't care for the weak, so he let Jinwoo and those he considered weak to separate from his group. The B-rank leader is now a soldier of Jinwoo's, Iron. I thought in the High Orc arc the leader of the A group was going to be a douche, the same as Iron was in the Raid Gate incident, and I was worried it was going to be repetitive, but I'm very glad that wasn't the case, and the leader of the A-rank hunters was a good guy, and they got to see Jinwoo display his crazy battle acumen in front of them, and I really loved it. This has me really anticipating the Jeju Island arc, because it is regarded as one of the best, if not the best arc of Solo Leveling. I especially am hyped because when I first experienced the story of Jeju Island, it wasn't in manhwa form, rather it was in the novel form, because back then the manhwa chapters for the Jeju Island arc hadn't come out yet. So in a way, even if I knew the gist of what's going to happen in this arc, I really don't know what battle happen visually. I don't even know what a Beru looks like. Also, the other monarchs, when I read the novel, I imagine them looking like some monstrous figures, but from the images I've seen online, they look very much human, so this has me very intrigued for the Solo Leveling anime in the future. And another thing I'd like to see is when it comes to power fantasy, Solo Leveling is king for me because it does the one thing that power fantasies needs to get right above anything else, and that, in my opinion, is hype. Think about any good power fantasy. One thing they are all masterful at is at being hype. Solo Leveling does this differently from other power fantasies by fleshing out the world and the power system. You don't only have tiers such as E to S rank, but you've also got nations involved in the story, and every single step of the journey, even the small ones such as Jinwoo's journey from E rank to B rank, is hype as hell. The only other power fantasy that could rival Solo Leveling for me is Overlord, and that is because it does its power fantasy similar to Solo Leveling, which is fleshing out the world in which our MC progresses in, and having the world react to their ascension every step of the way. But when it comes to pure power fantasy, I may have to give it to Solo Leveling because stories like Overlord are not pure power fantasy and have other things supporting them, while Solo Leveling shines on the merits of its pure power fantasy aspect, which is insane to me. Also, another thing that makes Solo Leveling and other power fantasies great is not only the satisfaction us the audience get by seeing our MC get stronger, but also the reaction of other side characters to the achievement of the MC. One of my favorite moments in the Solo Leveling story is seeing other hunters like Chae-In, Gogan-Hee, Woojin Chul, and the many S-rank hunters react to how strong Jinwoo is. When in episode 7, after Jinwoo took the test to get whether he is S-rank or not, and he speed blitzes past the reporters to avoid them, and we see the leader of the White Tiger Guild shocked at Jinwoo's speed, that was as hype for me as the insane Sakuga fights we get in this story. And it doesn't stop there, it escalates every step of the way. Jinwoo's journey is well thought out, and this method of having other side characters reacting to the achievements of the main character is not unique to Solo Leveling. Every battle-based story does this. In One Piece, one of the hypest parts of that story is seeing the world react to the achievements of the Straw Hats through newspapers after each arc. In the Kingdom manga, one of the hypest moments is when we see the reaction of the other nations to the achievements of the Jin military. In Naruto, when we see Naruto display his powers, cause he is the only one who can stop said threat, that is hype AF, and Solo Leveling is a master at utilizing this trope. Seeing other guilds fight for Jinwoo to join them is also hype for me as the high Sakuga battles, and as I've said earlier in this video, if Solo Leveling keeps retaining this quality of animation and pacing, it might just go down as one of the greats. And one interesting thing that is noticeable about Solo Leveling is that when it comes to pure animation, there are other stories that have overall better animation such as Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen, but the story of Solo Leveling is so good that even if you don't have that godly animation that Studio Ufotable and MAPPA offer, with great animation it becomes more than great and enters the realm of a classic in my opinion, because as I've said, Solo Leveling is one of the best, if not the best power fantasy out there. And another aspect that Solo Leveling is so good at is that it knows what it wants to be. It's a pure power fantasy and it just plays to its strength and creates a really good story. Now I can see some people criticizing Solo Leveling for the lack of focus on side characters and some depth lacking to the characters of the story. I can understand them, but ultimately I don't agree with them. For people who say that the characters in Solo Leveling don't undergo some crazy deep personal character journey, I'll say this: you're judging an apple for not being a horse. What I mean by that is Solo Leveling is not trying to be this deep philosophical story that is meant to make you think deeply about life or reshape how you see it. Solo Leveling is a story that knows what it is, which is a power fantasy, and unapologetically displays power fantasy story beats, and that is one of the reasons I love Solo Solo Leveling so much, and I give the author of Solo Leveling so much props. In the hands of another author, we might have seen some divergence from the power fantasy aspect for being afraid of not developing the characters much, and then end up with a story that doesn't do both aspects well. But in Solo Leveling, since the author goes full in on it, I consider that to be a bold choice, which in my opinion pays off and creates one of the best stories, especially when it comes to power fantasy. And the anime, as I said before, seems to understand this concept, especially starting in season 2, because we see less and less side characters screen time that wasn't present in the manhwa. And man, I'm really enjoying Solo Leveling right now, and I just had to ramble about it. If you've made it this far into the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, and with that said, see you guys in the next one.